So, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Seafood Explained here at Kontali. And today we're going to navigate the waves into the Norwegian salmon farming industry. We're going to use a report published just before Christmas called The Norwegian Salmon Farming Industry as a backdrop for our talk. And we're going to touch into several different topics. We're going to have a bit on production, a bit on markets. We're going to talk about the Norwegian on-growing farmers, of course, our favorite topic the last 3 years, the Norwegian resource rent taxation, and of course, auction of new production licenses are also coming up. To help me navigate these waters and tell us if it's stormy or smooth sailing, we're very lucky to have Philip with us, our senior salmon analyst in Kontali. So welcome, Philip.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a good and normal day in Oslo. I heard you skied to job today, so it's business as usual. Yeah. So exciting couple of years, and now we're looking into another exciting year for 2024. So should we just get started, or do you have some opening remarks you want to?
Let's just start. I'm happy to be here. Let's
happy
kick it off.
You are here as well, because I have a lot of questions, and very lucky that you're gonna explain them to me. And I like to start on the big picture. We need to talk about. We're going to talk about 22, 2023, 24, but let's start with production on a global scale. How has it fared? Do we still have salmon to harvest? Is it anything in the sea? And how did 23 and 22 go? And I actually have some graphs to support us as well, so you can talk to those.
Yeah, so actually it's been decreasing already from 21. So let's start with 22, which the report is based on. So global production was 2,862,000 tons whole fish equivalent. And in 2023, it was 2,810,000 tons whole fish equivalent, which is a decline of 50,000 tons approximately. And for 2024, we're actually working on our estimates right now. So we're finalizing the regular stock audit for Norway this week. And we'll come back with a fresh forecast in a week. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for updated Norwegian numbers. But we actually saw a decline in 23 in volumes, and that's been quite a while since we've seen that on such a scale. And I'm guessing that the driver behind it is biological problems in Norway and Chile. In Norway, we heard about jellyfish and sea lice. I think it's a problem. And in Chile, we had some algae blooms as well. And is this right, or are there other drivers as well?
I think you're mentioning the most important thing. So it's been quite turbulent year for Norway and Chile, which are the main regions, but not only, actually Scotland as well, just to mention another. So we're going into 24 with some turbulence. I think it's going to be challenging, but I'm also really excited. So let's just go back a little bit to 23. What happened? So we had, like you mentioned, regulatory changes in Norway. So the resource tax has characterized 23 as well. And biology, like you're mentioning. So there are the underlying reasons for that are fragmented, but it boils down to challenges to biology, which limits supply. Actually, it's been quite challenging as well, because coming into 23, we had a quite different forecast than coming out now. So we anticipated. Pardon?
You were quite optimistic in the start of 23, weren't we? It was a new year, new possibilities, yes, but it didn't pan out.
And at that time, the underlying assumption we had was correct, but that changed quite drastically in the second half of 23. So I think looking forward now to 24, I think the key word is uncertainty. So, and when it comes to biology, changes can happen quickly. So actually, it's more, really more value to have the correct forte to anticipate changes now than ever. If we look on 23, for instance, actually the main driver or where we experienced much less growth in supply was the second half. So I think that we're coming into 24 with this continuing. We will see some of these effects as well, at least in the beginning of the year, as it looks now. But really, we're updating the forecast this week, and I think we will be able to come with a more correct estimate where we present also the underlying assumptions in a week.
Yeah, not only kind of production in Norway, also but Chile. You said the algae bloom, and but they also had the rumors of the El Nino. The rumors are now somewhat weaker El Nino, not so strong. But do you expect that to have any kind of effect on the harvest volumes?
Absolutely. So I think it's going to be challenging, but where there's challenge is also opportunity. And like I mentioned, this aspect of anticipating is more important now. And when you're mentioning Chile, what comes to my mind is a little bit what I believe was some sort exactly this some anticipation that it could be challenging with the algae bloom or El Nino. So it seems that the farmers in Chile has drawn learnings from last time it had the big effect, which was 2016, and anticipated that and start to harvest a bit earlier than perhaps they wanted to do in an ideal situation. So that affects the supply, and also affects what weight classes of fish is available in the market.
I guess that will be reflected in the price as well, won't it? If you look at prices, we can look at European prices, but of course volumes in Chile will play, I guess. But you're talking about weight classes and what's available, and we're talking about opportunities as well. There's risk, and I think we saw it both the beginning and then the second half of 23. That was a big difference in what kind of fish that was available. The smaller sizes were plenty, but the bigger ones, 6+ were somewhat less. Is that the correct observation by me, or do you want to correct that as well?
Absolutely, and I think we can show. I mean, the reasoning. We can look at the European, say, or Norwegian market, but I think the point or the underlying reasoning is is the same. So I mentioned opportunities because there's a big challenge with biology, but we can say it's a challenge in the when we look at it globally or specific regions, but it doesn't strike equally. So in the sub-region, you can be lucky not experience that, and then you will get paid. Or say it differently, when you anticipate the changes and you do correctly, you can actually profit from that, and that gives also big opportunities. So one thing I expect actually maybe in 24 is to see more differences in the earnings than earlier. And when we look at the graph which we see in front of us, it starts in 2022, and you see. So what you see really is two prices for two different weight classes. So it's I believe it's 6-7 kilos, which is the dark blue, and the lighter one, which is the Nasdaq Salmon Index, which is a weighted average for the typical standard sizes. And you see it's a premium there in 2022, but the gap is quite small. And coming into 2023, we see that gap getting bigger. And actually at the end here, second half, like I mentioned, where we experience more of the challenges in biology and adjusted forecasts, we see that spread being much higher. It closes in a little bit in October there, but you see at the end of the year, coming into 24, that gap is big enough. So that's what I mean with opportunities. If you're having a large fish, you can earn some premiums on that because they're going to be there's less say big fish in the market than the small.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have big fish and you're willing to sell it, I think you can do quite well. But if you step back to Norway again and kind of look at the backdrop for this discussion, the Norwegian salmon farming industry report you made before Christmas, it's look at the kind of the financial performance, not only biology for the companies. And we probably have to look at 2022 first, because that's the only official full year for every company that's lately published, but I guess you can have a look at 22 and 23 as well. But 22 was a good year, but somewhat interesting coming into the last quarter.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit background about the report. So we benchmark and analyze 78 recognized salmon farming companies operating in Norway. And we divide them in two groups. The large ones typically have 6 or more licenses, and the small ones. And we also divide according to region a little bit to see which region is more profitable. And what we've seen that for the big, larger companies, we end up having an EBIT margin of 28.5%, which is really a high number and better than it was in 21. And for the smaller companies, slightly lower, 26%. So to sum up 22, it was a good year. For 2023, I think it's a bit early to say anything. We only have 3 quarters of results, and that's only for the stock listed companies. And keeping in mind that most of the challenges and adjustment in production has been made in second half, I think it's a bit early to say. But what we can say now has been that the prices have been high, so that's one driver. But I mean, if you don't, if you have challenges in the production, you don't, I mean, cannot profit from that price. So I think 23 is a bit early to say anything about, but like a little bit, like I mentioned earlier, I believe, I think maybe we can anticipate bigger differences between the companies. And also for the smaller farmers, I think we don't really have any information yet.
No, but you said you benchmarked them. Are you going to be able to benchmark them 22 when it's 23? There were some new companies popping up and 22 and 23 when we had that kind of slight bombshell of resource rent taxation popping up in September.
Exactly. So the benchmark, we perform a benchmark between the companies, and due to the introduction of the resource rent tax, we've seen already in 2022 that the companies are changing their structures to isolate the value creation or the C phase of the salmon farming in separate entities, because that's the only part, I mean, that's the part which is subject to the tax. So this is one aspect which makes it more difficult to benchmark and benchmark the companies. We've seen that already in 2022, although the tax I mean, comes to play from 1st of January 23, but you see that those restructuring already happened before the tax is coming, and we saw that also in 23. So this comparison is much more difficult to do. It was difficult in 22, and I believe now also we will do this work and put a lot of effort to get this right, because it's not going to be an easy task. And you can ask, why do they do that? Perhaps I can mention that when we come into more about the resource rent tax.
Yeah, but let's just jump straight in. I think we're already there, so not to kind of walk around the elephant. But the resource tax, it was announced in 22 and 23. You're going to report yourself, and in 24 we have another exciting development. You have the Norway Price Council, so it's not finalized yet. It's still a lot of kind of not issues, but questions and how are they going to solve it, and what kind of price are they going to fix on the salmon in the end? Or am I wrong?
I think you're summing up it very well. So the announcement came in 2022. Investment froze. The
froze,
tax rate
dropped away. They were gone. Basically, there was no investment the last quarter of 22, right?
Pretty much no investments. We can I can touch upon that later a little bit, where it's actually we can depict that. But announcement came in 2022, so big uncertainty with regards to that. Also because but the actual tax. So here's the difference a little bit. The announcement came in 2022, but it was voted for passed in the parliament in May 23. So that also adds an uncertainty. Will it pass or will it not? And at what rate? So initially it was at 40%, the suggestion, and it passed through with 25%. So but although this is set, there's a lot of controversies and uncertainty related to that. One controversy is actually it applies back in time, so from 1st of January 23. And there's a lot of uncertainty how to value the value creation, which is subject to the tax. And like I mentioned, is only in the value chain is the part where where the fish is at sea. That's the part which is subject to the tax. That's where it applies. So when you have companies which are integrated and have been for a long time integrated, this isolating this part is not easy, and it's not easy to find what is really in scope and out of scope. That's one part of it. Then you have the second part, which is even more maybe difficult, to set the correct price. So when the taxation ends is basically when you take out the fish from the sea. There's no market at that point in the value chain. There's no market price for salmon. So this is why you will have the Norm Price Council setting the norm price for in that point. And I think it's obvious that comes with uncertainty. There's somehow an interval, and they will do that from 24, while in 23 it's the company themselves who are valuing this part, obviously according to Norwegian tax law and guidelines from the OECD about transfer pricing. But nevertheless, even with the guidelines, I think this part is very difficult.
Absolutely, and we see some restructuring and adjustment already from the different companies, and there are the stock lists that are kind of showing what they think will be taxated, but that's just assumptions, right?
Yes, it's based on their assumptions. Of course, I'm sure they have legal advisors and tax advisor auditors who assist them in that process. But still, there are a lot of things which remain unclear. And when looking at the financial statements, you see some of the companies, I mean, they have to indicate somehow what they believe is going to be the tax burden. Some of them are more, more not clear about it. I mean, they point out the difficulties with that, but some can set the kind of rate of signaling a rate. So what's the kind of tax burden in comparison to the whole activity they do? So not only farming in Norway, but farming elsewhere, and also in different parts of the value chain. Some others are more say I mean, they come up with some number, but they're not they're not calculating the rate. But what they do, all of them, is to signal or to indicate the implementation. So a one-off tax burden, which might be a source of some legal dispute, because they indicate deferred tax, which they might turn out not to have to be paid, and that has something to do about the fish. You basically have stock of fish before coming into 2023, and the question is, can you deduct the incurred costs on that fish because you had that fish before? But the regulator
so far has been no, hasn't it? So you can't. It's not deductible. So
yeah, so the regulator has, the government has said stated quite clearly that it's not deductible. But here you have a little bit controversy. Maybe I'm not the legal expert, but historically, from what I've read, this been not been the case that you cannot deduct this. So let's see what happens. I think that's an important thing for the industry to get clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be some discussions around resource taxation in 2024 as well, I guess. But let's move on there, because there's other interesting things happening in 24. I think it's you have a new auction coming up, and before that you have the traffic light system is going to color the production regions in red, yellow, or green, and new volumes and an actual opportunity to grow. I'm right.
Yes, absolutely. So so every second year there's new capacity auctioned off in Norway. What's interesting to see a little bit is to go back to 2022 when we had this auction, and it came right after the announcement of the tax. So what we saw really was that no large or stock listed companies participated in that auction, and the price of the licenses dropped down. I made a rough calculation and estimate that price drop to be around -30% across the production areas, which really says a lot about what kind of investment appetite there was right after the announcement.
But the rest volume or the rest capacity in 23, there was a slight bounce back in that price, wasn't it?
Exactly. So when things settled a little bit, at least, and the tax was passed, there was a rest, like the remainder of the capacity, which was not was unsold, was auctioned off again, and we saw that gap closing into -16% across the production areas. So, and I believe for this year, I think the gap is going to be perhaps disappear or really close in. And you can ask why. I mean, not that I have a strong opinion about what the price is going to be, but I'm sure about one driver, which is there's not enough supply, and this is the way to grow. So when you have this is the only opportunity, then I believe there must be appetite.
I'm guessing the timing of the auction as well is kind of an interesting topic. Will be before summer, at least it'll be after end Q2 sometime, because you have to have the product traffic light system grading. But the timing of the auction is interesting as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I really hope it's going to be after the summer. Why? Because during summer we will get the financial the financial statements of the companies, both the large and small, will be publicly available, and they will reveal the tax burden a little bit across the industry, which is that's an important element to the valuation, I think, for the investment, because you want to know right now there's uncertainty to what the tax burden is going to be. Not that everything is going to be in place at that time, maybe not, but I think it's going to be more clear, and for the different companies which are going to be the bidders, they want to know, they compare themselves to their peers, and they also need you want to be certain about your valuation as well before you bid. So, and this is actually an aspect which is also beneficial for the regulator who is auctioning off, because if you can reduce risk and uncertainty, I think the appetite is going to be larger. So I really hope it's going to be after the summer, which is a bit later than, it's been varying a little bit, but often it's been postponed to after the summer. I think this should be the case this year.
But do you think it will be an auction for those with the deepest pockets, or will there be opportunities for new kind of licenses for the smaller or the less willingness to pay, or what you will say? But I guess there's fixed price licenses as well in this auction.
Yes, so I think the provision of the auction, or one aspect of it, is to get the fair price, which is high. It's a valuable asset. So in this regard, those with deeper pockets have an advantage. But also, you can ask the question a little bit differently. So from the regulator's perspective, you want an efficient use of the resource. So and who's that? So who can pay the most? Is the farmer who can make the best use of the resource? So who has perhaps the best margin? So actually, it's also a question about performance. If you can make good use of the asset, you can pay more as well, just like any other investment. So, and that's an important aspect. Another is, so you want to create a competition where you have the best kind of winners to win. But you don't only want the competition during the auction to get the best price. You want to have a good working industry after the auction. So with healthy industry with a lot of different players. So you actually want also to have somehow diverse winners as well. So and that's why I think the auction format is important, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of auction format is going to be announced. If we're talking about timeline a little bit, so like normally it's been announced, what the auction format has been announced around February, so Q1. Then in Q2, I believe the coloring of the production areas is coming. So according to the traffic light system, so basically, if there's green light in your production area, there's going to be capacity auctioned off. If it's yellow, no changes. Red, you actually lose capacity. So, and that comes a bit later. So I believe typically in May. And finally, there's the auction.
Yeah, interesting. And I think we kind of almost run out of time, but let's try and kind of sum up this little talk a bit. We started off quite broad, but we actually saw on production where we saw a decline in volume for 2023 for first time in several years, and driven by biological problems in Norway, UK, and Chile. We had jellyfish in Norway, we had algae bloom in Chile, and we also see kind of forced harvest in Chile, or preparations for El Nino, as you say. So, and you also see kind of it's not only smooth sailing, there's some stormy waters coming into 2024, but as you also noted, where there are risks, there are also great opportunities. We still are well managed and kind of good at what you do, and being able to have good big premium fish. You can have an extra large premium on the price, at least for 23 you had. And then we dropped into a bit on how they performed, the companies, and then 22 was good. 23 we don't know yet, but indications are somewhat good. Let's see. and 24, it's we can't talk about that without talking about the resource rent taxation. And then again, you summed it up quite good for me. I think you say 22 was the kind of the shock, 23 was adjustment or restructuring, and 24 is the kind of the last package on the tree with the norm price council, and how would that pan out. And in the end here, you also took up a very interesting topic on the auctions, which are the opportunity to grow as well. And I think you hinted that they come prepared, and I think that's a good lessons to take away from here as well, whatever you do. So but the things we talked about here today, you can find some of it, the performance of the companies, in your salmon farming industry report, and we showed some graphs in the start from our Edge platform as well. So if anyone is interested in that, reach out to us and we will help you out. And if you don't have anything else to say, Philip, it's a good day, I think.
Thank you very much. It's been really a pleasure to be here talking with you, Ragnar, and also to all the listeners. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, and see you in a month's time. And I think warm water shrimps will be in the agenda in February. So talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.